You believe you control your own mind. You don't. Ideas are planted in your head every single day, shaping your choices, your reactions, your entire reality. The terrifying part, you don't even know it's happening. Today, I will expose the hidden architects of thought. I will show you how to detect the invisible strings. And then, I will give you the precise methods to plant your own ideas in the minds of others so seamlessly, so subtly, they will believe it was their own brilliant revelation. This is control without them knowing. And once you master it, you will never be a pawn again. Let me expose a fundamental truth. Most people try to influence with brute force. They shout, they argue, they issue direct commands. They use logic, reason, or even emotional pleas. And they fail. They fail because the human mind is not a blank slate to be written upon by force. It is a fortress designed with an innate, unyielding defense against overt control. It recoils from pressure. It resists being told what to do. Think of a small child told directly, eat your vegetables. Their immediate visceral reaction is resistance. Their internal system flares not because they hate vegetables, but because their autonomy is being challenged. Now picture a clever parent understanding this core principle. They don't command. They simply say, calmly, clearly, do you want to eat the big broccoli or the little broccoli first? The child still eats the broccoli. But the critical difference, they believe they made a choice. They felt empowered even as their behavior was precisely steered. This is the subtle art. The mind is a fortress with a single, unyielding defense, perceived autonomy. True influence is not about breaking down that defense. It is about bypassing it entirely. You do not push your idea. You do not argue for it. You weave it into their existing tapestry of thought, making it indistinguishable from their own thread. Your success depends entirely on their conviction that they arrived at the idea themselves. They will execute your will not because you commanded it, but because they believe it is their own brilliant, self-generated conclusion. This is not persuasion. This is psychological ghostwriting. First, master the Trojan frame. People do not resist ideas that confirm who they already believe themselves to be. Their identity is their most guarded territory, and ironically, it is also its most vulnerable flank. Leverage this. Imagine you face a stubborn client, resistant to adopting a new, more efficient software. You could list features. You could argue benefit. You could highlight competitive advantages. They will nod, smile, and then find a dozen unspoken reasons to cling to the old, comfortable way. Their conscious mind rejects your direct input. But what if you approach them differently? What if you said, you know, I've always admired how you're quick to adopt anything that truly gives you an edge in the market. This new system, it just feels like something you'd intuitively grasp given your established drive for unparalleled efficiency. You have not told them what to do. You have simply aligned the desired action adopting the new software with their deeply held self-perception, their inner narrative of who they aspire to be. You praise them through the lens of the software. They think they are simply affirming their existing identity. They are agreeing with a flattering assessment of their character. In reality, they are accepting a new behavior, a new thought, as a natural, inevitable extension of who they already are. They believe it is their thought. They believe it is their conviction. But it is your script, whispered directly into the core of their ego. You did not give them an order. You gave them a mirror and they saw your idea reflected as their own strength, their own intelligent choice. Next, give them the illusion of choice. The human mind craves control. When presented with a single, predetermined path, it revels. It instinctually hunts for alternatives, for escape routes, for any avenue that preserves its sense of agency. This is the root of all resistance. You need someone to complete a difficult, time-consuming project. Directly assigning it often invites procrastination, excuses, or subtle sabotage. Instead, you present a carefully constructed false dichotomy. You calmly state, you could either tackle this major project now, which requires intense focus and a significant time commitment, or perhaps take on that equally challenging client proposal that just came in, which demands quick thinking and aggressive negotiation. Which one feels right for you today, given your strengths? Both options are your desired outcomes. Both demand significant effort and deliver value to you, but they are framed as their choice. You have subtly removed all escape routes. Any choice they make feels empowered, autonomous, a product of their own free will. They are not being forced into a task. They are freely choosing from options you meticulously designed, each leading to a conclusion that serves your purpose. People resist force. They do not resist freedom, especially when that freedom is a perfectly constructed illusion. This is not manipulation in the crude sense. It is the sophisticated architecture of perceived control. Then deploy the echo chamber effect. A single voice, no matter how authoritative, can always be dismissed as an opinion, a suggestion, or even an isolated thought. A new idea introduced once is easily forgotten or rejected as an outlier. But a chorus of voices, seemingly independent, carries the weight of undeniable truth. You want your team to adopt a new, slightly controversial strategy, one that requires a significant shift in their thinking. You casually mention it in one conversation, almost as an aside, planting a subtle seed. You might say, I was reading about this disruptive approach some companies are taking. It's fascinating how it forces a reevaluation of established norms. A few days later, you subtly prompt a trusted colleague, someone they respect, but who is not directly connected to you on this topic, to mention it in a group setting. They might say, oh, I heard about that too, it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Then perhaps an article coincidentally appears in their news feed, a video populates their algorithm. The idea does not originate from you. It appears to emerge from the collective consciousness, from the very fabric of their perceived reality. They trust consensus. They mistake repetition from varied, seemingly independent sources for universal truth. The more they hear it from different mouths, from different contexts, the more they believe it came from their own mind, or from the undeniable, emergent tide of public opinion. It ceases to be your suggestion and subtly transforms into an undeniable reality, a fact they discovered for themselves. Next, master the forgettable seed. Conscious resistance is a powerful gatekeeper. When you push, it locks down. When you pitch, it raises its guard. The obvious approach invites immediate defense. The intelligent approach bypasses the guard entirely. You want someone to reconsider a fixed belief, a deeply ingrained habit that serves them poorly but is difficult to dislodge. You do not argue. You do not challenge. You do not even reference the specific belief. Instead, in a completely unrelated conversation, perhaps about a general observation, you drop a seemingly irrelevant remark. You might say with no inflection, it's interesting how often people double down on bad habits, even when the evidence is staring them in the face. It's almost a subconscious commitment to discomfort. Then immediately you change the subject, showing no attachment, no expectation, no desire for a response. You let it hang in the air for a fraction of a second, then move on. The idea bypasses their conscious filter because there is no perceived threat, no overt challenge. The seed is planted so quietly, so casually, they do not even register its presence. It floats in their subconscious, unexamined, until it begins to germinate on its own, appearing as an original thought, an organic realization that simply occurred to them. The quieter the seed is planted, the deeper it grows, rooted in their own mental soil disguised as self-discovery. Then learn to leverage their narrative. Every person carries an internal narrative, a complex, often unconscious story they tell themselves about their life, their challenges, their identity, their past, and their future. This narrative dictates their responses, fuels their fears, and shapes their aspirations. It is both their guiding light and their most profound limitation. Someone is stuck complaining about a recurring problem they genuinely cannot solve, often because their own narrative prevents them from seeing the obvious solution. You do not offer solutions directly, for that invites resistance. Instead, you ask carefully crafted questions that gently guide their own narrative towards your desired outcome. You might say, given everything you've overcome in the past, all those times you defied expectations, when you pushed through obstacles others considered impossible, what's the one thing you usually do that truly makes the impossible happen? Or, knowing how much you value independence and self-reliance, what would truly independent action look like for you in this specific situation? You haven't told them what to do. You've merely triggered their own internal logic, their own self-image, their own heroic narrative to provide the answer. They use their own history, their own values, their own perceived strengths to arrive at the conclusion you wanted. They believe they are solving their own problem, exercising their own unique genius, making a choice deeply aligned with their character. You simply provided the carefully designed map for their journey of self-discovery, leading them precisely where you need them to be. This is self-persuasion, engineered by you, echoing their own best self. Next, master the mirroring trap. People naturally trust what feels familiar. They are profoundly drawn to those who seem to understand them, to share their perspectives, their values, their very way of being. This perceived alignment disarms their critical faculties and opens the door to influence. You want to build deep rapport with someone, perhaps to shift their thinking on a sensitive topic. You do not challenge their initial statements or opinions. Instead, you subtly mirror their body language, crossing your legs when they do, leaning forward as they lean. You match their vocal cadence, their speed of speech, and subtly echo their key phrases. You repeat their sentiments back to them, perhaps rephrased slightly to deepen the perceived understanding. For example, "So, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're feeling a deep sense of frustration because the current system isn't supporting your ambition. I completely get that. It's like trying to run a race with your shoelaces tied, isn't it?" Once you have established this deep, almost unconscious rapport, you gently introduce your idea, subtly framed as a natural extension of their own thoughts or feelings. And because you're the kind of person who always finds a way around obstacles, who truly values practical solutions, this new approach might resonate with that natural drive. They feel profoundly understood, validated, and connected on a level they cannot articulate. Your idea, when presented, feels less like an external suggestion and more like an internal echo, a profound agreement. They adopt your thought because it feels like their own discovery, a realization stemming from a shared understanding that you engineered. This is not about being fake. It is about being strategically resonant, making your idea their own by making them believe you are them, seeing the world through their eyes. Finally, master the calculated pause. The average mind abhors a vacuum. Silence, especially in conversation or during a critical exchange, creates an unbearable psychological pressure that most people instinctively rush to fill. This inherent discomfort with emptiness is their profound weakness and your ultimate weapon. You ask a probing, open-ended question. Perhaps, what do you truly believe is holding back this project? Or why do you think that approach failed? Then you say nothing. You let the silence stretch longer than comfortable, beyond what is socially polite. You hold their gaze, calm and unblinking, your expression neutral, waiting. The other person will begin to squirm. They will feel an intense compulsion to speak, to explain, to justify, to fill the void. They will often offer more information than intended, reveal underlying weaknesses, or even concede points they would otherwise defend fiercely just to break the uncomfortable quiet. Or when they finish speaking, instead of replying instantly, you pause. A beat, 2 beats. Let their words hang in the air, creating a subtle pressure for them to elaborate or reevaluate what they just said. While they scramble to fill the emptiness to alleviate their own discomfort, you are observing, calculating, gathering data. You are letting their own internal pressure work for you. You do not need to push for answers, they will give them to you. You do not need to argue, they will persuade themselves or expose their own flaws. When you control the silence, you control the frame, the pace, and ultimately, the outcome of the entire interaction. This is not just a pause. It is a psychological chokehold, tightening unseen, until they yield precisely what you sought. You have now glimpsed the hidden pathways of influence. This is not about overt force or crude manipulation. This is about architecture. You are not pushing ideas, you are building thoughts and making people walk into them by choice. You are becoming the silent sculptor of minds, the unseen advantage in every room, in every negotiation, in every relationship. The best part, they will thank you for it, and they will never know why. Begin small. Choose one of these tactics. Apply it with precision. Watch the subtle shift, the quiet redirection of their thoughts. Observe how their ideas begin to align with your unspoken will, how their actions serve your hidden agenda. The world moves because of those who control it from the shadows, the silent ones, the ones who plant the seeds and watch the harvest. Will you remain a puppet, moved by the unseen forces around you, or will you become the puppeteer, controlling without them ever knowing? The choice defines your power.